Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode on the Audi TT. So yes, welcome back to another episode on the Audi TT. Sadly, I haven't got all the bits I wanted for the engine to be completed. However, I have gone and picked up the new turbo. Really lucky that I kept this. I'm pretty sure that I've only done about 12,000 miles on this turbo in the lay-on, and it was brand spanking new when I bought it. I bought it for £750 from Borg Warner themselves. So this should be good as new. I mean, the blades still look pretty much brand spanking new. Everything's all nice and clean. I haven't touched this since I removed it out of the lay-on. So this is going to be a really good little addition to this car, because now I know that the turbo is going to be absolutely spot on. However, I'm still waiting on the head bolts to arrive, so I literally cannot carry on any further with the engine build until they arrive. But I have got a few other bits and pieces I want to get done. So I've got the interior heater switches. The ones on the car at the minute, all the buttons are looking rather tired, and the caps for the ends of here are missing and cracked. So I bought a new unit that's going to go in. I've also got all the brakes that I'd really like to get done on this car as well. Obviously this car hasn't moved for about 3 years, so definitely from a safety point of view, changing the disc and pads all round is definitely a smart move. So first of all, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to try and get this into the car. Let's crack on. Right, so here's the old control unit I need to try and remove. As I say, the buttons are all horrible. This cap is completely missing, so the nice new unit is going to slide in there and it's going to look a damn sight better. So what I'm going to try and do is remove this trim so I can get to the bolts that will then pull this off and put that back on. Removed. As you can see, like I said, the buttons are all cracked, that cap is completely missing, and it just looks horrible. So, bought a new one, that's now going to get put in. I didn't realise at the time that I had to remove the CD player, and what I did was I cut up an old Coke can and I made some pins, which I couldn't believe worked, but they did. So what I did was I googled what the pin shape looked like, and it had like a little notch with a triangle. I cut them up, put them in, and then I actually managed to force it out. So whilst this is out, actually I might look for a replacement, because the CD button is all manky and loose, and all the buttons here are completely worn out. So I might leave that out for now and see if I can find a replacement. If not, I might do a nice upgrade and fit some kind of aux port or USB slot somewhere. I'll see. But now it's time to pop this one back in its place. So there we go, the new heater controls in place. Already looks a load better. I've also given the dashboard a really nice scrub. There was a few mold spots and stuff appearing, but it's come up really nice and clean. Really happy with how the interior is already starting to look. Like I say, once I give all the seats a wet vac, this interior is going to come up absolutely looking like new. So that's the interior pretty much done for now. Like I say, what I want to do is either replace the stereo or just, find the same standard version. I don't know, I'll make my mind up on that. But next, what I want to do is replace all the brakes. Fronts first, nice and easy, don't need a wind back tool or anything for these. So I jacked the front end up and put it both on axle stands so I can access both at the same time. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip off the wheel and we'll have a look at the brakes. And as you can see, there is a nasty crack right along the edge there, if you can see that. And they're really heavily grooved. Chunk missing out of this one, and again really grooved, really nasty. Not surprised, as the car's been stood for 3 years, so the compound of the actual pad is going to be starting to break up. Yeah, not very nice at all. But here's the discs. Look at the state of that. You can see there was only a contact patch of about that much, nothing being touched at the top or bottom here. Definitely well worth replacing these. So, good job I bought them. Here, I'll give everything a quick clean up and a quick spruce up. I still had plenty of alloy wheel paint left over, which is actually high temperature paint anyway, so it's perfect for brakes and bits and pieces like that. So I've just given everything a quick wire brush and I've given it a quick coat or two. And now what I've done is I have cleaned up the slider bolts, and I've got some grease here that I'm going to pop some grease around the actual sliding parts. And then pop them back into the caliper. Now I should be ready to put the pad carrier back on and pop the pads in place. Carrier now in place, it's time to fit our pads. What we need to do first, however, is we need to push the piston back so that the new pads can slot into place. So you need a big pair of grips and you need to try and grip them in and give it a squeeze. Like so. Now you can see the piston is now completely back, so that gives us plenty of room to put the new pads in place. Go with our caliper now in place, we just need to pop the caps back over the nuts, bolts rather, and then we need to pop the spring back in place. So we'll start at the bottom first, and I'll put it just in a little spinach, and I'll do the same there, and then you've got to try so, and then push it back into the caliper. There we go, spring is in place. Last thing is to connect the pad wear indicator up. So slide it in there, and then slide it back in its little home. So a little rubber grommet there. So there we go, this side is now complete. Right, so with the fronts done, it's now time for the rears. The rears are a little bit different, as you have to use a wind back tool to push the piston back, which is this thing here. So as you can see, you've got various little different tools, and I'll show you once I take the caliper off that the piston has two little grooves where they sit in, and then you wind the piston back, and then once it's fully back you can then replace the pads. But first of all, what we'll do is we will remove the caliper, and it's pretty much the same as the front, where you've just got two bolts holding the caliper on, and then you've got another two bolts holding the carrier on. I'm pretty sure with these discs you can remove the discs without having to take the carrier off, so we'll see. But first of all, we'll just get the actual calipers off, release the pads, right, so I've just removed the caliper off of the carrier, and I've removed the pads, and unfortunately they look brand spanking new. However, the pad material is actually starting to break up in my hands. There's a chunk there I've literally just chipped away at by myself. So it's definitely worth replacing them. Like I said earlier, the car has been sat for about 3 years, so this kind of thing is definitely worthwhile doing. Just remove the screw for the disc, and hopefully, yeah, so we can pull the disc off without having to remove the carrier, which is nice. It does save you a couple of minutes having to remove all this. Plus you can now clean all of this while still in place, which is really handy. And then what we need to do is wind back the piston, although I'm not sure if we will, because like I said, the pad material is still so thick, I'm pretty sure it's brand new. So the piston might not even need to be pushed back. We'll have a look shortly. What I'm going to do now though is I'm going to clean all this up, give it a spray, and then we will crack on with fitting the new stuff. So as you can see, I've put the new disc in place, I've screwed it up, and I've also given the carrier a quick scrub and a quick going over with some paint. Now I've also removed the sliders from the carrier. What I'm going to do now is quickly give them a fresh coat of grease and pop them back into place, making sure that the dust cover is completely sealed. There's one. And there's two. Right, so all that's left now is to potentially wind back this caliper a little bit more, the neck out, like so. nice and tight. And then you start to wind the middle in. Oh, this is tight. You need to make sure you keep nipping up the centre. There we go, only needed about half a turn, 3/4 of a turn. That does look pretty much home. So the pads have got these little springs on top which push against the caliper, so make sure when you try to put a bolt in, you give them a real good push in. They can be a nightmare sometimes. Once you start getting the bolt in, that'll be fine, and you do the same with the other. Be careful not to over tighten these bolts because they do have a tendency to stretch and then snap. So a nice nip is plenty. But that is now this side complete. I just got to move on to the other, and then that's the brakes done. So with the brakes all done, there's actually not a lot left for me to do until all the engine parts arrive. But I have got one other thing I can crack on with right now, and that is a new rear light. There is a nasty crack here, and it's just letting the rear end down. So I just want to get this swapped over. So unfortunately that is all the time I've got for today. However, I'm really happy with the progress starting to make on the TT now. Obviously replacing that rear light lens has made a world of difference to the back end. Giving the interior a quick scrub and replacing that heated controls has made it look almost brand new inside there. And obviously with the braking system now had a slight overhaul, it's going to be nice and safe when the car's actually drivable. I'm really hoping that all the bits and pieces turn up this week so that I can then crack on with the major work of putting the head and the turbo back in place next weekend. So join me next time when hopefully we start putting all that back together. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.